all my friends, all those who are participating currently in our Mathnawi readings. Let this moment open up the opportunity for us to conquer good, to dispel evil. Let the heart of the people who are again participating in this Mathnawi reading be filled with the love of Allah. Let this moment be fruitful. Let this session, our joint efforts together to understand Mathnawi, be also fruitful and beneficial for all of us. If you recall, last time we have read a story that deals with a king and king's sudden falling in love with a young slave girl or handmaiden while he was heading to hunting with his courtiers. He saw this young lady and all of a sudden fell in love with her, and he paid whatever necessary to purchase her, and he bought this Jariya or this slave girl. And however, after a couple of days, handmaiden became ill, and she started getting actually weaker and weaker. And as according to Mevlana''s expression, she has become as thin as a hair, so slim, so tiny, so ill. Then this king invited all the most qualified, well-known doctors, physicians, all around his environment, all around the world. Then the doctors gave the king assurance that they will treat this young lady and they will use all their knowledge, wisdom, and techniques, whatever they learned in terms of their professionalism, and they really healed this handmaiden, this lady. And the king said, look, my life and her life is, both of them are in your hands. I will give you my fortune, my treasure to you, provided that you cure my beloved young lady. That was, of course, king's desire and wish. Then the physicians, trusting their knowledge, trusting their, of course, professional experience and wisdom, and they had a reputation, they put together their minds and they produced, as we learned from the last couple of couplets that we have read, they produced what we call kind of syrup or medicine, which was sirkengebin, made with honey and sugar, which was supposed to, repel the bile, and also almond oil, which was supposed to give a kind of relaxation and ease the constipation and ease the contraction. And also there was helila, which is a kind of fruit, very similar to prune. And but all medicine that they gave worked, opposite. Instead of curing, and unfortunately worsened her situation, and the condition of this young lady day by day became deteriorated. And Mevlana, of course, gave us a couple of important lessons up until this point, in addition to, of course, mystical dimension, purely spiritual dimension of this story. Let me share with you what we have extracted last time in terms of ethical teachings that we learned from Mevlana''s presentation to us. One of them was, in the world, in the cosmos, there are causes that apparently, one, there is cause and effect relation, causality. So the real agent is not the object itself. The real agent, Allah Almighty. So absolute agent is that. For example, the medicine that they really worked out, they produced, was supposed to, according to their knowledge, their investigation, their accurate knowledge, was supposed to cure, but it worked otherwise. So you may be stuck with the causes, in front of you, but you should go beyond the causes and research for the cause of all causes, like a musabbib al-asbab, as we say, the real cause, which means Allah Almighty. In other words, let me be very specific. According to the like pure naturalist philosophers or scientists who do not believe in Allah's intervention in the world, everything is independent, everything its own agent, everything is like being as being. So when we follow this purely scientific, materialistic approach, of course, you expect that for example, almond oil is anticipated to repel the dryness, but it did not work. Again, prune, like fruit, myrobalan, helile, was supposed to give relaxation and body to cure the constipation, but it didn't work. So always we have to look for the cause of the causes and search for the real agent, that is like Allah Almighty, who is the real agent in all things and not the things themselves. So when we look at a thing, yes, there is a nature of that thing which turns to itself, like a thing as it is. Also, it has an aspect, it has a side which turns to its creator, maker, Allah Almighty. So everything functions, operates in the world in accordance with the destined nature, of course, determined nature of Allah Almighty. But this ordinary operation sometimes maybe intervene directly, occasionally, and Allah Almighty, because of his direct, again, involvement, intervention, and this the thing that is supposed to heal or cure may not necessarily cure and heal, the sick person. So this is exactly. And the second lesson that we have learned, if you recall, my dear colleagues, is that these doctors had too much confidence in themselves, and this is important. But they forgot to mention, of course, this inshallah, if Allah will, meaning of course God willing, and somehow they have omitted, and they were so boastful, they were so arrogant, and so they, because of their too much confidence in their professionalism, they had given all kind of assurance to this king, and hoping that they will cure the illness. And they said even we could consult with other physicians, but they failed. So and then Mevlana said, because they forgot that even their medicine, the origin of their medicine has come from Allah Almighty, and the source and origin is He. So they were supposed to remember Him in every act they do. Yes, they may acquire highest level of knowledge. They might have obtained the best degree in their field, but unless Allah wills, okay, and they cannot give you the guarantee they will cure. So they will really help. And therefore Mevlana said, and not necessarily saying inshallah by tongue, by heart, you should also remember that Allah is the real agent, and you do all your efforts, you do all your, investigation, research, and the physical efforts, but don't stay there, and ask finally for the help of Allah Almighty to succeed. That was exactly the message that Mevlana, our master, has given us in these couplets. Now let us move to the couplets that follow after, that comes after 54th. Now 55th. For the sake of time, I will just read English, and if necessary, to explain some technical terms, I will also go back to the Persian origin. Now, once the king saw that the physicians failed, so they had no power. So the king saw the powerlessness, impotence, inability of all these physicians. Now what the king did, and he realized that something was wrong. The king also put his trust somehow, apparently, in the power of these physicians. He ran immediately barefooted to the mosque, to the masjid. So here, pa burehne, meaning kind of, here is like desperate, barefooted, and he stripped himself of all these external concerns, in other words, and they all putting too much hope on these people. He realized kind of self-realization of his mistake and going to mosque. And here is important. Mevlana Jalaluddin, as we learn from the commentators, somehow seems to allude here to the story of Musa alayhi salam, Moses, into Surah Taha. Inni ana rabbuka fakhlay alayk innaka bil wadi al muqaddas duwa. Allah said, verily I am your Lord, so take off your shoes, you are in the sacred valley. So that means you should leave behind everything, your concern for your family, for your livelihood, and you should take out the love of this world and the next world, as the commentators say, and free yourself from all your concerns, and also free yourself from, relying and slavishly relying on the ability of the people who are like you, human beings, despite their competency and professionalism, and seek help. In a sense, do not here sandals like na'alain represent concerns of this world and the next world, of course, in spirituality. But here, like the attachment, too much attachment to the environment around us, and to this physical means, physical, power that we seem to be like trusting. So, and again, we have to also derive a lesson from here. That is, in fact, so we also see this like Ibn Sina, when he studied logic, when he tried to find the middle term in the logical premises, and day and night he used to work very hard at home. Then once he couldn't find, he used to go to mosque, as we learn from his autobiography. He used to go to masjid and offer prayers, and then ask Allah Almighty to help him find out, the solution to his logical problem. So Mevlana reminds us, he says, why masjid is the house of Allah also is kind of seclusion, you see, and loneliness, and the meditation, reflection, and also spiritual ambience over there. So get this spiritual inspiration and get closer to your Lord in his so to speak, domicile, like a bait house, and then get the help. Exactly, the king, of course, by giving the story of king, Mevlana somehow is telling that you should do the same thing. If you face a challenge, a problem, you do your efforts, you exert your efforts to do maximum of your ability, but never ever, you know, uh, uh, abandon your trust in Allah Almighty. You should rely exclusively on His guidance. So then what happened? He entered the mosque, masjid, then advanced to where? Mihrab, and the sajdagah, of course, the prayer carpet, and of course he put his forehead on his sajdagah, prayer carpet, and with the tears, profuse tears, flooding from his eyes, bathed like his carpet. So, which means when you go to mosque to seek the help of Allah, turn to the Qibla. So that's mihrab, means you should turn the Qibla. So in other words, spiritually and metaphorically, mihrab is a place. If I use this great master's Sufi mystical terminology, our nafs, okay, a kind of struggle. We are in a struggle with our nafs, like a Satan, and between the carnal soul and Satan. So where is this battleground? Battleground is exactly, in our inner world. So the Qibla is the direction that you should turn. So a spiritual traveler or seeker of the truth, and he has to turn to Qibla, leaving aside all his concerns and attachments, and prostrates himself on the rock and submitting his will to Allah Almighty completely, then get the result from Him. So these couplets, again, let me repeat, implicitly indicates a very powerful moral message for us. If a person falls in trouble or suffers from harm or pain, even now we are in this dire condition, and if he is sincere in approaching Allah, he has to make his plea, request to Allah Almighty. He should go to mosque, turn there towards the Qibla, and beseech Him with what I call utmost humility and sincerity and tears in his eyes, and then the next couplet give us a further indication how to proceed with our beseeching, with our supplication. And Mevlana says, of course, kind of, you should lose yourself in the prayer. You should pass away from yourself and like a kind of ecstasy, jazba. So that's why he says he bathed with his tears coming from his eyes. His sajdagah was flooded with tears. That is in fact the state of what we call annihilation, fana, in the spiritual terminology. But we are leaving aside, we are rather, again, concentrating now for the timing on the moral dimension of the story. When we come to the end of this king and story, I will of course share with you for sure, based on our readings from the commentaries, the mystical dimension of this metaphorical interpretation of the story as well. So on coming to himself out of this flood of ecstasy, and he opened up, Mevlana says, Zaban, Hosh Zaban. That's Hosh Zaban, of course, like beautiful language, beautiful way, in a means goodly praise. Okay, he opened his lips in goodly praise and loud, and so when he came out the state of annihilation and like losing himself in the prayer trance, he woke like sobriety, became sober, and he started articulating very meticulously, consciously what he was asking for from Allah. So the prayers, and he started invoking, and the like this. Maybe let me also share with you another important moral admonition here. It's, you see, there is a hadith, إن الله يحب أن يحمده أن يحمده. Allah Almighty loves to be praised, loves to be thanked. It's beautiful. Then can a drunk person, I'm using this expression, of course, a quotation mark, when I said like a sahu person who is in the state of annihilation, fana, in the state of course, nothingness, in the state of full ecstasy, rapture, do you think that he will be able to praise? No, he may utter certain expressions, sometimes apparently, may appear to be offensive and blasphemous. My God forbid. And as we know from our mystical literature, and in reference to Hallaj, for example. Okay, so you may utter exclamation, problematic, some controversial according to literal understanding, external understanding of the text. And then who could really praise Allah the way he's supposed to be praised? Of course, sober person. So you have to come out from that state. You see, you have to come out from that state. So therefore, a state of sobriety is the highest state according to most of the Sufi masters. Although some would like to remain in the state of annihilation, ecstasy, because of the overwhelming love they enjoy, they seem to be getting this pleasure. So he started invoking his Lord with his prayers and the praises. Okay, this king, and Allah Almighty demands, of course, beautiful praise from his servants. That's fair, as we said. So praising and glorifying Allah is what I say a prerequisite for the fulfillment of our wishes and prayers. Let me repeat this. Praising and proper praising and glorifying in advance of Allah Almighty is a precondition in order for our prayers and wishes be fulfilled and met and granted by Allah Almighty. That is what Mevlana's message here. So again, it says, now what is saying this king? Open up his hands in a sober state. So, oh, you least gift, your least gift, this is kemin bahshishat, kemin bahshishat meaning the few, the very small blessing, gift, favor that you have given us is the Merkezi, the empire world. So, and he said, what shall I say then? What shall I say inasmuch as you know the hidden thing? But look at this, he said, oh Allah, you know what is hidden in my heart, what I want, and what I'm asking from you. So what shall I say now? Because the least gift that you have bestowed on us is the whole world. But, and then you, since you are all-knowing, you know my secrets, you know what's in public, like alaniya wa sir. In this case, what shall I say? In as much as you know, and because you know what is hidden in my heart, what I'm looking for. Now, which means, oh my Lord, you bestow all favors and blessings. The least favor that you give us and your servant is the whole world. And also, king is directly saying here, by the way, in reference, you have given me the kingship, sultan. I'm a sultan. What else? What else can I ask from you? You honored me with this rank of kingship, sultanate. Therefore, what can I say with my tongue to express and describe, to praise your name, your favor? You know also what is all my secrets that are hidden in me. And so let me continue, and we have another message from Mevlana here for us to really to ponder together. Oh, you again, this king continues, with whom we always take refuge in our need. Once again, we have missed the way. Here is the point. He's basically saying, oh my Lord, ای همیشه حاجت ما را پناه. That means our refuge when we find ourselves in need. Who is you? We should resort to you. We should go to you. Oh our Lord, it is true that we should present to you all our needs for their fulfillment. However, this time, he says, but this time, bare digar maqalat kardim ra. This is what it is. But this time, I'm sorry, we have strayed by failing to take heed of your message. Meaning, this time we have gone astray, we missed the way in meeting our current needs and wrongly, look at now, what was the problem? Wrongly petitioned to the physicians. Wrongly we put our exclusive trust in their hands. But without realizing that they are themselves weak and powerless like us. And beside, I am the king. I brought all these powerful physicians together. They failed. So therefore, I realize also my mistake. King saying, we have wronged and made a grave error. So, our Lord, you are always our shelter, our refuge, our protector. Unfortunately, we forgot this. We omitted this. Instead of invoking your name, your beautiful name is you, and seeking the fulfillment of our need from you, from your generosity, from your mercy, from your knowledge, wisdom, we resorted wrongly to these incapable, impotent physicians and so-called sages of this world for the cure remedy. In fact, I have come to the realization that they are themselves in dire need and weak. Now, again, he continues, but you have said, here it is now, how to make a dua, how to offer, how to make your petition to God or Allah Almighty. Mevlana beautifully, gives us and the kind of, a manual, guideline, like a minhaj to follow, how to approach our Lord, how to, make, if I use this expression, make nas, make, kind of manifestation, a kind of subtle, delicate interaction with him. Okay, how to make it? And here is Mevlana saying, but leak, okay, guf de garchi mi danem sirat. You have said, oh my Lord, although I know your secret, meaning, okay, see, gerçi mi danem sirat. You said this. Zud hem peyda kunesh ber zahiret. However, declare it forthwith in your outward act, which means it doesn't mean that I don't want you to tell. Although you know my secret, but you also ask me to express it forthwith with my behavior, in my action, and literally verbally, and all my, appearance. So, you see what it means. قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ عُدُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ. Call unto me, I will answer to you. That's the Quran. Or وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا تُسِرُّونَ وَمَا تُعْلِنُونَ. Allah knows what you hide and what you reveal. But وَإِن تَجْهَرْ بِالْقَوْلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. If you speak loud, then indeed he knows the secret and what is even more hidden. So all this from the Quran. So as a matter of fact, all that is hidden is expected to come out or to be manifested as required by your name Zahir, because Allah has name as Zahir al-Batin. So since he makes things manifest, also we have to make our wishes, secrets, to him, reveal to him, and make it manifest as per required by his name as Zahir. And what happened? This 61 from the couplet, Mevlana continues. When from the depths of his soul, I mean the soul of the king, John, he raised a cry and loudly. And the sea of bounty, oh my God, sea of bounty, like Bahri Bakhshayish, Bejosh, like a Joshmak, surge, and Josh. Sea of bounty began to surge, to overflow in a sense. Of course, bounty here's mercy of Allah, compassion of Allah. So from the inmost depth of his heart, his soul, this king raised a scream. Then the sea of bounty, as a result of a scream, opened and surged. So as a result of course, and if you want to open up Allah's rahmah to you, you have to cry, and sometimes if you are alone, louder, as exactly the king was alone, facing himself to Qibla, and in the masjid, he was literally crying, and also like loudly expressing in a very utmost modesty, humility. And so that moment, you see, when Allah Almighty saw his servant in such a dire condition, and pleading to him, petitioning to him, he opened up his bounty. So our invocations, in order for them to be accepted, this is the way we should do it, as Mevlana is telling us. So now, after long duration of prayer, cry, and the articulation in a beautiful manner by praising of Allah Almighty, his desire, what he needs, then he fell asleep. Slumber overtook him in the midst of this weeping. در میان گریه ها به عشق در رو بود دید در خواب کی پیری رو نمود. And then what happened? He dreamed that an old man, Pir, of course a sage, all of a sudden appeared to him. And what is meant by this Pir, according to Mevlana, is an insan al-kamil, perfect human, from the ghaib, as we will see later, from the ghaib. Like if you recall the story of Moses and Khidr in Surah Al-Kahf, exactly. So the perfect man, in disguise of human being, from highest place, from the invisible and unseen, appeared to him in his dream when this king was weeping. And then said, good tidings, glad tidings, and happy to you, O king. And he heard a voice from deep during his dream, from this whom? From this old sage. And your prayers are finally granted, fulfilled. گفت ای شه مجد حاجتت رواست گر غریب آیدت فردازی ماست. Tomorrow, if tomorrow a stranger come to you, he is from me. So he said, greetings, your wish is granted, humble king. Tomorrow to your aid our men will come and we will bring to you. So who is this imagery form of the perfect human whom this king saw in his dream? Of course, and as we mentioned earlier, and as a friend of Allah, someone who has been instructed, taught, cultivated, you know. So you are now witnessing, in other words, this means by saying this, the one who appeared to him in his dream was saying, now look, you are witnessing my imagery form in your dream, but tomorrow I will be in my corporeal form. That's what it means. So you saw me now in your dream as an image, as an apparition, as a kind of form, but tomorrow you will see me in my physical body and form. Now, when he comes, he is the skilled physician, Hakim Hazik. That's the expression, Hazik, like Hazik Astiani. When he comes, he's a skilled physician, and which means trust him. Yani, deem him, trustworthy and truthful, precious, because he is trusty and true. He is sincere and pure. Sadiq, Amin and Sadiq. Look at these two most important characteristic of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Amin and Sadiq. That's exactly. So when you look for a spiritual person, a person of like a teacher, so any teacher should first and foremost emulate these excellent qualities. Before becoming a teacher or physician, a doctor, or a manager, you should be Amin and you should be trustworthy, truthful. You see, these two golden, what I call virtues and the human character traits. So he says, "Sadik eştan ki," and accept him as a truthful person because he is sincere. Now, so my corporal form, you will see tomorrow, is in fact an able, capable physician who will cure both your external and internal illnesses, and as well as your sick handmaiden's illnesses. That's the assurance giving. Whatever he says to you, therefore, is true, and hence you should trust him and accept his word as true. So he's a trustworthy and a truthful person, Amin and Sadiq. Now, let me carry on. In his remedy, behold, now, absolute magic. In his remedy, look carefully, you will find an absolute magic. Sihr mutlak, Rabibin. In his temperament, mizajesh, behold the power of haq, Qudri haq, Rabibin. So he says, you will find in his remedy an absolute form of treatment like a sihr, magic. And in his human temperament, also you will discern that he is somehow holding the power of haq, Allah, in his hands. So witness amazing magic and applaud him, see in his temperament the might of Allah. So here, sihr mutlak, very interesting, and absolute magic. So the cure magic, which means, definitely when you apply his treatment or cure, absolutely it will be efficacious, effective. You should see the great healing cure in his magical medicine, the power of Allah, also in his temperament. In other words, the perfect mind of the perfect human, I'm using this, terminology very carefully, like a perfect heart and mind of the perfect human, when they are conjoined with what we call our human particular intellect, who is sincere, like a student, then there comes into, being a luminous kind of, power or perceptive faculty through which he will be able to see, the realities behind the appearances. He will see the direct intervention of Allah's power in every matters. So you will be able to notice the healing power in his magical treatment. And why Mevlana is putting too much emphasis on this absolute, magical power, or like sihr mutlak, absolute magic. When we look at really here commentaries of the Mathnawi, Alhamdulillah, Allah be praised, and we learn a lot of beautiful messages that are of great importance to us for today. And here, for example, they say this spiritual physician, okay, when you behold this, you can discern the power of Allah in his temperament. How is it possible that a doctor can hold in his hands, the power of Allah? And there is a hadith Qudsi, as we all know. Bi yasma'u wa bi yubsiru wa bi yamshi wa bi yabtushu. Remember, my servant get closer to me by his prayers, by his extra devotional practices and the dua supplications, so much so that I become his ears with which he hears. I become his eyes with which he sees. I become his feet with which he walks, and I become his hands with which he touches. So he becomes literally strong and powerful thanks to Allah's intervention. That's exactly the reference of Mevlana here, as in this couplet. So when the promised hour arrived, meaning that next day he woke up. He woke up, he came home from the mosque, the king came back home. Look at, of course, Mevlana making the short story short, and because what's important is not the details of the story. It is in fact the lesson that Mevlana is interjecting and infusing in lines, in technical terms, and in these couplets. So he says, when the promised hour arrived and the day broke, meaning dawn came, in a sense, the sun from the east began to burn the stars, of course, meaning gradually, slowly, night disappears and sunlight, comes in other words. So the next day, promised meeting neared, approached. The sun shone bright and stars had disappeared. So then, if I apply this metaphorically, all these physicians in the palace who had been invited by the king before, apparently they failed. These, like stars, in terms of Mevlana, these physicians, so much trust they put in their physical ability, professionalism, and they omitting the name of Allah, the power of Allah, and Mevlana compares them to stars. Even he doesn't say moon, stars, because stars borrows light from the sun or from the moon, so to speak. So he says, when the real physician, sun, appeared, what will happen to these stars? They will all go away. So with his shining luminosity and like the sun, when this spiritual physician appeared, all the rest of the physicians disappeared. That's also another meaning. The king was then waiting where? Watch over, like gazing through the window, belvedere, in a sense, like Bud ender manzara şeh muntazır, tabi binet ançi bin mudenser. So what we're expecting to see, that which had been shown mysteriously, to see what has been promised secretly. So he was basically like and this manzara, people there, and looking through the window and closely, observing the people, seeing the people, and expecting his guest. Okay. Now, sir here, of course, mysteries, like secretly. Maybe we'll leave it for the end of the story for maybe for next week's, and when we finish the story, we will come back to that, because still here a kind of world of similes, or world of similitude, like alam al-misal, world of images. So the king, in fact, was waiting to see the appearance of this competent sage physicians, whose image had already been seen to him in the world of images, like in the parables. But then, since he was fully convinced and sure that he would come, and he was waiting in a sense. So at the same time, he would like to make sure that his dream was really, right dream, like a salihah, like a truthful dream in a sense. The vision had so the kind of confirmation. So he saw a person. دید شخص فاضل پر مایه‌ای آفتاب در میان سایه‌ای. He saw a person excellent and virtuous, worshipful in a sense, a sun like coming among a shadow. So beyond the crowd, he says, saw a virtuous person, like a fadl, excellent person. Among the shadows, he's like shining like a sun. So, which means, every spiritual master or a pious person, my dear colleagues, according to our spiritual masters, in fact, is a manifestation of the divine love, divine light in this phenomenal world. Because knowledge is ilm, ilm is nur. So if a person is sincere, if he combines, zahiri, batini ilm together, like a purely rational sciences, physical sciences, and together with the spiritual sciences, and he becomes like a luminary person on the earth. He not necessarily treats the physical illnesses, also gives the best treatment to spiritual illnesses. So this is exactly a reference of Mevlana. He becomes like a divine light, like sparkling in this phenomenal world. So the king at last saw this a perfect, virtuous person, like a sun, and the sun among the shadows. So in his stereo eyes, this person appeared to him like a spiritual sun and divine light. Coming from afar, who? This spiritual master, doctor, physician, invisible, like the new moon, مانند hilal. می رسید از دور مانند هلال نیست بود و هست بر شکل خیال. So he was non-existent, though existent in the form of imagination. He just like a crescent moon, he came to view, but a non-existent image seen by you. So he was so subtle, so unsubstantial apparition, like a man in the hilal, and always like a unnoticeable, indiscernible in a sense, his existence. So Mevlana basically saying, if you would like to be really a perfect human, you have to go through self-struggle, excessive self-struggle, self-discipline, riyazat and mujahada. That's exactly. So you have to cultivate your corporeal body. You have to work on your corporeal body, jism, and it's through this cultivation and the self-realization, self-struggle, and the mujahada and mujadala and riyazat, and so you will become also like a moon, in other words. So this virtuous, excellent person came from afar. He is compared to a crescent moon, in a sense, very thin in his body, and luminosity is very powerful, like extremely shining. Okay, in terms of his appearance, he is very thin, but in terms of an hidden nature, he is extremely powerful. Oh, and that is the meaning of it. In the spirit, that's Mevlana says, imagination is as nothing. Then look, behold, a world and a fantasy. Now, he says, Mevlana giving us some moral lessons here. look, you have ruh and soul, those who believe, which is very subtle, and they exist in us inherently in our corporeal, visible body. And within this subtle spirit, almost we have fantasies, images, and we can even, imagine things infinitely. That's the, this is, of course, the as a power of ruh in ourselves. So he says, as compared to the spiritual ocean, when you look at this world, is nothing like imagination, is a fantasy. So do not really trust too much, in the physical material world. In other words, like a fantasy, khayal, being rawan. That's as rawan, of course, here, spirit, soul. Um, Maybe for the sake of time, I move fast to the end. At least we have to finish until 75. Let me read very, very, very fast. Then their peace and their war on a thought. For example, say people are fighting, for material interest, for their ambition. And so look at peace and war. This kind of imagination, images, and their pride, their shame spring from idea. And and again, those imaginings, now look at this, which trap this, even the saints, are the reflection of the fair ones of the garden of Allah. And but so in order for you to transform these fantasy worlds into kind of reality, you should look at them as the reflection of the wisdom of Allah on the earth, so that everything will be meaningful, intelligible to you. That's the message Mevlana tries to give. And you see, that is the way that saintly friends of Allah, awliya, look at the things. And so even the dreams may come true in their sense, because as we will shortly see, now in the countenance of the invisible guest was appearing that imagination which is the king beheld in his dream. So it means the peer whose image he saw, king saw in his dream, just appeared to him as clear as the sunlight. So here is, there are, Mevlana says, basically alluding to, there are images, visions, like ruya are classified into two. Some visions do not correspond to the external physical forms. This can be interpreted like tabir, as we see Yusuf alayhi salam, and some visions which correspond to the external world. In fact, these need not to be interpreted, they actually occur. And the commentators of the Mathnawi here provides us with an example from the Surah Al-Fatih. Remember, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ رُؤْيَا بِالْحَقِّ لَتَدْخُلُنَّ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ آمِنِينَ مُحَلِّقِينَ رُؤُوسَكُمْ وَمُقَصِّرِينَ لَا تَخَافُونَ فَعَلَمَ مَا لَمْ تَعْلَمُوا وَجَعَلَ مِن دُونِ ذَلِكَ فَتًّا قَرِيبًا. Surely Allah has fulfilled for his messenger the vision in truth, meaning the dream, ru'ya. That is, you see, this concerning, like this refers to the dream that Rasulullah had seen. Like this dream had prompted the Prophet to perform this what we call Umrah, minor pilgrimage, which resulted finally in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. It's a long story, for those who are familiar with the seer of the Prophet ﷺ. And so his dream became a reality, and they came into be true and proven to be true after a year. And he did not perform that year, but 1 year later, of course, they were able to enter the sacred mosque, as the Quran says. So here, basically, Mevlana is saying this king saw in his dream the image of the spiritual master, and the next day he came, exactly he appeared in the way he saw him. So basically, his dream was ru'ya salihah, truthful vision. And again, some commentators mentioned that the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he had received the first revelation, again narrated from Aisha, then apart from this cave in Hira, the revelation came in his vision, like every vision he had in his dream came to place in the actual world, meaning the Prophet ﷺ. So the king himself this time, instead of chamberlains, instead of his officers, like viziers, himself went forward to welcome this guest, meet his guest. Guest from where? From invisible ghaib, khish. Of course, like Khizr. So and both were, now Mevlana says, both of them, both the king and the spiritual master who came from this invisible world, like a sea ocean, who had learned to swim in the ocean of wisdom of Allah. The souls of both of them, king and the spiritual master physician, were knit together without sewing. The souls so conjoined together, which means the king himself, who is an ocean of external sciences. Look at Mevlana saying, like ulum zahiriyya, physical, rational sciences, religious sciences. But the invisible guest, spiritual physician, who is an ocean of ulum al-batiniyya, esoteric sciences and spiritual sciences. So when this ulum al-zahiri, ulum al-batini conjoin and intertwine, united, then the wisdom will be very beneficial. So these two great oceans who had been in pre-eternity familiar to each other were now conjoined and knit together in this formal world. And the king said to him, oh, look at this, how he pleased, how he was pleased and how he pleased him by saying, you were my beloved, not she, meaning not this Kenizek, meaning this young lady whom he fell in love. He said, you were my beloved, not she. But in this world, did issues from deed. And so one thing led to another in this, as they do, unfortunately. So in this world, Allah usually works by means of secondary causes. You see now? So even every mundane love, if we look at carefully, it may lead ultimately to the sublime divine love. See, because it's a sabab, it's a means, and here in this world, all the secondary causes are in operation. So the king's passion for this handmaiden, this Jariya, this slave girl, was the cause of his suffering tribulation, which in turn was the cause of his what? Imploring, beseeching, invoking Allah for help, so that the divine sage, appeared to him. So therefore the king addressed politely to the invisible guest, in fact, you are my beloved, not the yet young girl. So here meaning, metaphor, al-majaz qantaratul haqiqa, as they say. You see this handmaiden girl kind of bridge to the reality of the real reality. So metaphor is the bridge, is a pathway, is an entrance to the reality itself. And the king continues, oh, this is the last couplet that we will do it together. Ey maratu Mustafa men chun Omar ez berayi khidmetet bendem kemer. Allah, Allah. Oh, you are to me, Mustafa, peace upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while I am like unto you, unto Omar. I am to you, Omar, you are like to me, Mustafa. So I will gird my loins to you to do your service, meaning I will prepare myself to serve you as much as I can. So the king basically said to the peer, to me you are Mustafa the Prophet. I am Omar to you. I am fully prepared to render my service to you, just as Omar had rendered his service as perfect as possible to the noble cause of the Prophet Muhammad and helped him incessantly in the spirit of his religion. So he says, I am likewise ready to do the same for you. So if you recall, Umar radiallahu anh, may Allah be pleased with him, had declared his faith openly before the Prophet, who Prophet in turn had taught him Islamic faith and practices and elevated him to the rank of the distinguished companions. So, and therefore, you see, you need a good companion to travel and to go through all these difficulties and problems. And this is, of course, times now already 10 o'clock. I don't want to prolong any longer. Inshallah, we shall continue next week. but still I may get some questions, entertain some questions if there are any. Otherwise, inshallah, we will again say farewell or wassalam or goodbye, inshallah, with some dua later. If there are any question, please welcome, or any comments.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, can I ask a question, Hojam?
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Tariq. I was one of your students in Alliance of Civilizations Institute a few years back.
I recall you, but
yes. Yes.
Oh, please do.
Thank you.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
By the way,
yes, Hojam.
My seminar will start, inshallah, next week, Tuesday again, online.
MashaAllah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Hojam, and thank you very much for these talks. I've been, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you in dunya and akhirah. Actually, my question is related also to this week's talk, but it's more related to last week's. But because I was watching from YouTube, I couldn't actually ask the question.
Yeah.
It is regarding this belief in causality and how, for example, the physicians were wrong in believing that the medicine itself is what is actually behind the shifa. And it made me wonder, because it is very easy for us to slip into this belief, especially in this day and age, perhaps, that, for example, for me to believe that it is actually medicine that is making me better, or the clothes that I'm wearing that is making me warmer or something. And I don't know if in today's talk, I don't know if this master who is in a sense a representation of this causality or not, but does Maulana point out to how we should view this, or a practical way to solve this belief in? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tariq, for this beautiful question. I would like to refer you to one of my lectures which I delivered online, which is available on YouTube, Islamic spirituality, 4 of them, one of them exactly concerning this issue, and I dealt with at length, not necessarily in this early lines, because Mevlana speaks about almost many places of his Mathnawi. Let me tell you first in brief. Now, 2 things we have to make it clear. One, human beings must exert his or her efforts to do a maximum level of his capacity, okay, in doing research, finding cure, or resolving his problems by learning, by consulting, by experimenting, etc., etc., etc. This is what we call human endeavor. So Mevlana says human endeavor, prior to seeking the guidance and help of Allah, cure from Allah, you have to ensure that you must have exhausted your efforts. This is important. So human endeavor is a prerequisite, before knocking at the door of Allah Almighty's mercy. So this is one thing. Second, of course, therefore, divine succor or divine help will come, according to Mevlana, after we human being exhausted our secondary causes, asbab. Exactly as we learn from the story. You see, what the king did, he called all the physicians who made fame in their respective field and localities and regions, thanks to their, of course, professional and highly qualified experiences. So he did this, and Mevlana but did not stop there, and he carried on. But so now he has given us actually 2 examples. Look, based on their physical knowledge, which is available to them. You see, this prune, for example, you see, when you constipate, I'm sorry to use the expression, let me give you, when someone constipates, like very hard for him to really to do, to put his out, to give his output in a constipate, and we are recommended, to eat, to consume like fruits, which has lots of fiber, or any kind of other vegetables, and which will ease the system, the intestine, to move smoothly, and to relax. And so this helile, or kind of prune-like, if I use Mevlana''s expression, this prune, very like medicine, or prune, was given by, and they said, okay, this is the cure for this constipation, but it did not cure. And it was supposed to relax the human body, So, and why? And based on their secondary causes, like for their worldly knowledge, which was the case. Now here, I maybe use a philosophical terminology, or kind of David Hume's philosophy, or Ghazali, and not necessarily, there in the world there is a definite cause and definite effect, like causality. He says there is an occasionalism, meaning, yes, Allah Almighty put a system in place, and everything works according to their law of operation, sunnatullah, and there is a system. Okay, so, and everything, and according to the system, for example, we know honey, okay, is good for certain things and not good for other things. And then if you use the herbal medicine, some veggies, some vegetables are good for some illnesses, the other for other illnesses. But this may not necessarily always the case. That's exactly Mevlana''s position here. And you should, but you come to this, and Mevlana says here, and the musabbib al-asbab, the cause of the causes, means that a cure is created by Allah, but still is to be found by human being. That you see, cure is there, healing is there, medicine remedy is there, okay, for human being to go search for it. Because like anything else, for every disease, Allah created a cure for it. So since in this scheme of framework of like divine will, we definitely know that sooner or later, for example, as people now are searching for the vaccine for the COVID-19, will come out with that and experiment. And so Mevlana basically is telling us these doctors somehow neglected their limitations, overlooked their limitations. Not one doctor, two doctors, three doctors, so they get together. So human reason also work within time and space, and we have limitations, and therefore we have to seek ultimately the help of, help from infinity, meaning infinitely merciful of Allah Almighty. So He is the cause, and if I use the Aristotelian logic, Aristotelian terminology, uncause cause. So so He is the cause behind everything, so He says, therefore, you cannot neglect rational sciences, health sciences, physical sciences. These are necessary for the improvement of human condition. But according to me, these are not enough. This should be illuminated and complemented, supported, consolidated, in order for human being to become perfect, both in physical and spiritual world, by the spiritual, help from Allah Almighty. This is the point, if I made myself very clear. So I have also an article which I presented. I may also send to Tarab, inshallah. But please go to the YouTube, and you will find the series, and I would recommend even the series of lectures I delivered during the month of Ramadan, for just to give a spiritual dimension, for a kind of wisdom from this Mevlana, how to handle this current crisis as a Muslim. So inshallah, you can get the further information from my presentation, if you don't mind.
Yes, barakallah fikum hujam. I will watch the series, inshallah. Thank you very much. Barakallah fikum.
My pleasure. May Allah bless you. Thank you very much. Any other comment or questions? Okay, finally then, I can say as maybe one word, all we have said, but Allah Almighty is the most knowledgeable, and He knows the best. If we have made errors or mistakes, He is the corrector. He will correct us. And we pray that He will keep us on right path, and also He will enlighten us with His knowledge and wisdom and light, and protect us from all kinds of and the difficulties, hardships, diseases, illnesses, and also help humanity, and inshallah to come up with the cure as early as possible, to gain the safety and security, inshallah, regain again our normal conditions as it was before. I will leave you under the protection of Allah Almighty. Wassalamu alaikum. Allah's peace and blessings be upon you all. See you inshallah in our next session.